in business today. Most of the executives in business today are looking at how to address this changing customer expectation. It is a growing challenge, also impacting on how they're carrying out their business. The second, and this is not in order of importance, the second is around the legacy infrastructure we have. Given that the customer's expectations are changing, one of the major forces that is driving change is the limitation we see within our legacy infrastructure. These are infrastructures that we invest upfront, and then we have to see them depreciate over time. That means we have a balance sheet that we are depreciating the value of our infrastructure over time. And that means that our ability to adapt and change to address the changing customers' expectation is limited. And this is also something that is driving changing the way businesses view how they apply technology to business. The next part is regulation. Obviously, we are in an era where we're facing stiffer regulations, stiffer compliance, and whatever you have within your industry. And splitting your attention from focusing on your line of business versus meeting regulatory and compliance needs is also something that is bringing a lot of change within the business landscape. Another one is the non-traditional players. This is also something that we see. And as I'm talking about this, also look at your own vertical and see how this applies. The non-traditional players are like, if I'm talking about the fintechs or in the financial space, the fintechs and their likes, where they are going above and beyond the traditional things that these industries get to provide. And so it's also something that is bringing a lot of change even within the space. Another one is the changing business model, where people are looking at going across verticals to providing services that they are not traditionally used to, or providing services that will adapt based on the personnel that they are attending to. This is also something that is also impacting. Around fraud and cybercrime, I can't speak too much about this. We know about the new norm and the increasing utilization of digital channels, and this also brings along the increase in fraud and cybercrime. What about the technology space? What is driving the change in the technology space? There are basically three pillars driving the change in the technology space. One is the exponential growth in data. I know you must have heard about this a whole lot, but data is really growing. What does this bring to the table? It brings a lot of strain and stress to storage facilities. And given that the data is growing, you have to find a way to store it. On top of that, it brings a lot of stress on analytic platforms. So as the data is growing exponentially, so is the power that you require to reason over it also growing exponentially. And this is driving a whole lot in the cloud computing platform, having a lot of organizations migrate their workloads, migrate their analytics to the cloud, where they are not limited by the infrastructure they've paid upfront for. And the next part, the last part, is around artificial intelligence. I can't speak too much about this also, given that we are in the fourth industrial revolution, where there is a lot of process redefinition based on the enablement we have from artificial intelligence, and also the breakthrough we have through deep learning. These are things that we are seeing today changing the technology landscape. The interesting thing comes when we get to marry these two worlds together, marry the change in business and marry the change in the data space or in the technology space, to provide that differentiated personalized experience for our customers, or to modernize our infrastructure, leveraging economies of scale. So at the point where you're seeing that you need to change your infrastructure, is this something that you can easily change without impacting on your bottom line? Is this something that are you looking at ways to leverage or improve your cash flow, not having to invest in front and having to remove anything around anything that will impact on your income statement or your balance sheet? And then around regulation, can we leverage a platform that will take care of those regulatory and compliance needs without us having to invest our energy on that. That is where this intercepts some of the values you bring to the table. Then around the non-traditional players, how can we bring in agility? How can we go global with our services? How can we be innovative? This is also what this merge is bringing to the table. Around the changing business model, I can't speak too much about artificial intelligence, how we are also improving business processes using AI. And then around fraud and cybercrime, this is a very dynamic field. It is something that we can't, it can be based on rules. A whole lot of solutions we have today are rule-based, but given the dynamics and the very changing parameters or metrics around fraud and cybercrime, we have to go intelligence, and this is also what this is bringing to the table. Let me pivot down to the latest technologies that we have today, and I'm going to mainly focus on the first three. This is not in any order of importance, and I'm going to focus on cloud. I'm going to focus on data and advanced analytics. I'm also going to focus on AI and then biometrics, bots and RPA, things of that nature. My focus on this is going to be business oriented. So just apart from the cloud, I'm going to really dive into use cases and how you can leverage these services for the data and AI bits. And this is from the Microsoft standpoint. For the cloud bit, which is something very interesting, and I need to talk about this even for the startups that are in the house and for the Fortune 500 businesses that are in this room too. There is a lot of competitive edge you will gain by moving towards the cloud, leveraging the power of the cloud without having to put down upfront expenses into your business. Having to remove everything around asset management, it is something that we've seen that has given a whole lot of companies, especially the startups, competitive edge. And so you need to be ready for the future, given that you're leveraging a platform that you're not managing yourself, something that is growing on its own, and then you're using the latest technology going forward. You're also building on your terms. It is not based on a given license that you've purchased. It is based on what you're currently consuming. So you're actually building on your terms. You can decide to shut down the VM that you're using, or you can decide to scale it higher or upper, or scale out or scale up, depending on your business need. And then can you also operate in a hybrid platform? When I say hybrid, I'm saying, I know some of you must have invested in on-prem resources. Should you junk that? No, of course. That's something that is part of your operational costs also, given that it is depreciating over time. But you also need to leverage that investment. So the Microsoft Azure cloud platform is something that I'll also talk about, how you can leverage your on-prem investment, and then security bits. So Azure is, just see it as your remote data center or your remote PC, depending on whether you're a student or a business. It is in over 60 regions across the world. So wherever we are, it's very close to us. In Nigeria here, we have data centers in Africa. We also have data centers in Europe, where we can leverage first-class services from Microsoft and also third-party services. In terms of security, imagine the amount of information we're getting, over 6.5 trillion global signals on a daily basis. And the amount of money, about $1 billion that are investing in cybersecurity to make sure that all our clients, all our customers are protected, even in this time of COVID. And then looking at what we'll see around compliance and security, you will see the different compliance offerings. We have over 93. Some of them are industry-based, some of them are global-based. But imagine what this would take off your shoulders if you are leveraging best practice, if you're leveraging the best-in-class technology to compute. Sorry, was there a question? Okay. And then if we go about what facilities, what tools you have within this remote data center that you're leveraging called Azure, or remote computer that you will use if you're a student, it cuts across everything that you're currently doing and even more. Around management, around the databases and the middleware that you're going to use, this is as a business, your first focus is not in managing technology. It's not in managing databases. It's not in managing your application. That should be left for the technology company to manage. And this kind of frees out that space, that resource for you to focus on your line of business to drive that value to your customers. So one thing that we offer, aside the infrastructure as a service, which is more like you hosting your application or your services on a VM on Azure, we bring to bear the platform as a service, which takes away all the management from you. And so your operational cost is even reduced. This is also something that if you're in business, this is what you have to spend money on, and both on operational costs, your asset management costs, and the rest. It is all part of the cost of production. And so taking this off your shoulders has already improved or made you more competitive by improving your bottom line. Then around what applications you can use or what infrastructure you can deploy your resources, there is both open source and Microsoft first class. It gives you that ability to leverage this. If I move forward to the hybrid part, this is also a very interesting part that Microsoft is introducing to the space. You must have some investment on servers, on Kubernetes. These days is all about how do you orchestrate your services so that it auto heals, it can grow as more people come onto your platform. Around maintaining your databases that you have already on premises. Microsoft has what we call the Azure Arc that you can bring into your on-prem data center, and then you can manage it as if you're managing our cloud. Your resources is still on premises, your data is still on premises, inventory is now centralized on Azure. So imagine you having a global view of the resources you have both in the cloud, third-party cloud, or on premises, or in a private cloud, depending on how you look at it. And having this resource to have a holistic view, and this will also help you in how you plan or how you deploy your solutions going forward. In terms of what you can also do in remote locations where you also don't have connectivity to the cloud, Microsoft also has the Azure IoT solutions that you can run in a disconnected environment, either in the form of Azure Stack or in our IoT offering. They can run in your disconnected environment, but still leverage the power of the cloud when you have connectivity to the cloud at the same time. I'm saying this because I'm bringing this today because over 95% of the Fortune 500 businesses in the world use Azure. This is mainly to improve their agility, improve their profitability, and also help them in the ever-increasing competitive environment that we run. Let me come back home to the one that I also know will, aside this foundation, obviously Azure Cloud is the foundation, but bringing it home so that you start looking at when you go to the cloud, what should you be doing? What are the things that you should be looking at in gaining that competitive advantage? This is around the customer experience journey. I have this case more from the financial service industry, but feel free to change the personas in this journey to reflect what you are going through in your own vertical. But it will really start from you defining what the journey of your customer is in the business that you're currently engaged in. And when I say define what your customer journey is, I mean right from the time somebody gets to know about the services you're offering to the point the person chooses to use you as a service provider, up to when the person gets onboarded, there is a journey all through. And these are all hotspots generating information that you can leverage to provide targeted or personalized service offerings to your customers. Getting to the point where the customer gets onboarded and start using your services, they are generating a lot of hotspots of data that you can also leverage. And also, how do you now partner with other verticals to also provide or more like entrench yourself in the life of your customer? Because at the end of the day, you're looking at a satisfied customer, and a satisfied customer is not just you meeting a specific need, it's you being the first point of contact for this customer, even if the customer is looking for something outside your vertical, because of the services you're offering. So you have to really reimagine what this customer experience is for you. At what point should you start getting data? At what point should you start using insight from the data to reach out to your customer. There's a whole lot that happens when a customer is researching about your organization around social analytics, the social media, or maybe you're performing marketing analytics. What insights are you getting from all these external environment, and how is it impacting on with the services you're delivering? For most traditional organizations, it doesn't. We don't see that relationship, and it's something that we have to really rethink in the course of going through this presentation. I'm showing you this simplified slide, but it's around how you're going to know your customer, and I call it the unified platform. This is Microsoft view, given given the period we've been in this business of analytics, on how you as a company should start rethinking your data analytics, also defining your business model, leveraging data. From this, you can see that there are actually two services, but I would dive deep into these services to see how they come together. But it's around you bringing your customer data. Remember, your customer data is not just about your line of business data, and that is what makes a whole lot of people do, focusing on the line of business information. But this is going way above and beyond what your line of business can provide, and also leveraging your operational and big data, bringing them together into a common platform, into a common data model. This will now allow you reason over it. And it looks like a very simple thing to do, but in my experience in the industry, it is a very, very difficult thing to do. We've been talking about digital transformation, like I think it's become a buzzword right now, but for you to see that implemented in our business, it is a very difficult thing. Why? It is difficult, and this statistics is not here, but let me just tell you, 90% of the data you have in your organization is unstructured, 90%. So that leaves you with just about less than 10% for you to reason, given the line of business applications you have. For the less than 90, the 10% that you already have to reason, they are actually in a disconnected environment. It is disconnected. So that also gets to limit the value you can get from the data you have. Above and beyond that, it is your inability to unify the data. I tell you, I know a whole lot of you must have heard things around data science and the rest, around machine learning and having services that can see or listen. But the process of defining or producing that is a very tedious process. That will require you unifying a lot of data. That takes over 80% of your time in machine learning. It is a difficult process. And businesses also find it difficult to unify their data. And finally, the lack of means to extract that in our environment. Well, what is Microsoft's view around this? And this is, you already know that Microsoft gets to simplify a whole lot of things. So this is the way Microsoft is looking at simplifying things, as closing the gap of you being able to unify data. If you've been in any data warehouse engagement, data warehouse is simply you bringing disparate data sources, consolidating them in a central place for you to reason over it. If you've been in any data warehouse engagement, it is an unending engagement. It takes a lot of time. And Microsoft looked at that and said, how can we use AI to simplify the process of you bringing in disparate data sources about your business? It could be the demographic information, it could be the behavioral information, it could be transactional information. How can we allow the customer unify this information, leveraging AI to perform that unification, bringing in data sources that are not traditional to the customer, and applying the insight to your line of business. This is from the research that Microsoft have done, gives you about 5 to 10% increase in revenue and 15 to 25% decrease in costs. So cumulatively, you can do the calculation to see the competitive advantage that you're already creating if you have this kind of platform, the customer insight. What does it bring to the table? So typically, you have your Dynamics 365, all customer insight, every information you have about your customer around their point of sales, your e-commerce, your CRM, the social media, their emails. The data sources are numerous. So imagine bringing them in and leveraging the Azure Snap Analytics to bring in all the enterprise data you have around your supply, your labor, if you're into IoT, your streaming, or your R&D, and then bringing that together into what we call a common data platform, which is your data lake. If there's anything that you need to go out with today, think about data lake. That is the new computing platform. That is the new storage platform for all your data. And when I say think about the data lake, I really mean think about the data lake as the way forward to leveraging the most out of your data. And this comes from the fact that your storage cost is very cheap. When your storage cost is cheap, obviously, you're only paying for what you're using. So that please, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Oh, okay. So I just got a pop-up that the host wants to unmute me.
Okay.
Then around the Azure Data Lake storage, what I'm really talking about is that platform that will allow you bring in all the data you have into a common place that any service you want can leverage this. In showing you the value you have for the customer data platform, which I just mentioned, let me just go through mainly how Microsoft is looking at this. The vision that Microsoft have for the Dynamics Customer Insight, I need you to have this. You can go read about it after this. But the Dynamics Customer Insight is to help organizations unify and understand customer data. This work is taken away from you by the Customer Insight. And how do they do that? How do we do this? Basically, we provide avenue for you to ingest all your data, provide an avenue to unify the data from the disparate data sources. This is with very little input from you, the owner of the data. Then give additional enrichment to the data that you have. Because I'm telling you, the data you have is that you're going to bring in might be your line of business data, but Microsoft can also enrich that data, leveraging a lot of the information we already have through our Bing search, our search engine, and the information we've gathered about people's preferences. All those kind of enrichment can be brought into the data you have on premises. And we can also bring in external data sources, also connect to social media to bring in information for you to enrich. And then identity resolution. Within your environment, you have different IDs for different customers on different platforms. How do you resolve that identity problem? It is a very serious thing to resolve, but this service also provides that identity resolution. Out of the box, you have customer segmentation. So one thing that we see in the traditional environment is people addressing their business, providing their products and services to everybody within the environment, and that's that's a lot to impacting on the cost, on your operational costs. What you get out of the box is that segmentation, customer segmentation, so that you can now provide targeted services, and then you can also bring in AI and insight all within this singular platform. So imagine how your sales department is going to work. I'm no more just going to the street to sell to everyone. I am performing a targeted sale based on the information I have. Marketing, finance, service operation, the C-suite, the way they look at the customer is now from a holistic standpoint. So let me just show you a simple walkthrough of how this solution is. So you have the different data sources. So this could be the internal data sources you have, and you also have the external ones, social media and the rest. And you have the connector within the customer insight that will help you bring in all this information. And then it will help you ingest it. It will map, match, and merge. The map, match, and merge procedure is AI. So you could map them to different identities of what a customer should be. Who is a customer? If I'm talking about a bank, who is a customer in this department? Does it mean that definition of a customer is the same thing for the sales department or for the marketing or for the retail, depending on what department you have? So to help you unify that definition of who a customer is, and then it will enrich this information using AI and all the wonderful solutions we already have out there. And then you can now leverage other solutions like Power BI, or if you need to show how create business intelligence dashboards and reports, or you can use Power Automate, leverage this information to automate some of the processes you already have in your environment, or you could use Power Apps to, in a low-code environment, develop an application that can leverage the information that you've gathered from unifying your customer. And also you can bring in third-party integration and also offer this to different channels, whether it is web, on the web or social media or through a bot. You have all these provided for you. The interesting thing about this solution is you can get the return of investment. The implementation period is just within a month if you have the resources. So imagine doing a data warehouse engagement and it takes years and it's unending, and getting the value from your data by using a platform that has already been developed for you. So going forward, I think you really have to think about this. Above and beyond what we have from which is a lot of value from the customer insight, someone will say, in my environment today, I already have a data warehouse. Or I might have a database, depending on how big your environment is. But I do not have a big data environment because and when I say big data, I mean all those your unstructured data. You have PDFs, you have files, you have a whole lot of, you have videos, you have audio. We don't look at those things when we're running our machine learning today. So for most businesses, they don't have a big data environment. What Microsoft is doing is to say, rather than you creating two parallel solutions, a big data and a data warehouse solution, why don't we give you a solution that will give you everything? And it's called the Azure Snap Analytics. It is both a data warehouse and a big data analytics all in one service. And the interesting thing about this is you only pay for what you use. So you don't really need to go procure big service or big servers to run the data warehouse. You only pay for what you use. If you just want to use pay as you go model, which is for the queries you're running, you only want to pay for it. I don't want to pay for any other thing. You can actually go that route. Or you can say, I want to create reports. I have this dashboard I need to create a dedicated compute for it. You can decide to dedicate that compute for it. But if you look at this, the central thing you see within the data warehouse, all this you're looking at that I'm showing here is the Azure Snap Analytics. It is all in one now. Why we went this route was because we saw a whole lot of challenge in having a different service for you to provide, for you to ingest the information, have another service for you to reason over it, have another service for you to store the information, have another service for you to go visualize it. That's a lot of moving parts that you need to bring together. And with this, it means the time to value is obviously higher. So what Microsoft is doing is to give you a single service that will help you ingest the information from wherever it is. It will store it. Here you're seeing the data lake. It is central for every service you're going to see going forward in the modern analytics platform. To store all the information that you have. To have the analytics bit of Azure, of the Azure Snap Analytics, to go reason over the data you have. And within the same environment, have a business intelligence tool, the Power BI, within the same environment for you to create reports and dashboards for your business to consume. So imagine bringing all this to one. And then you have access to your unstructured data, your media, your files, and your line of business application, all going to the data lake because it can hold it. If you now want to say, I don't just want to run, build models, I want to run machine learning, perform machine learning, nothing is really changing. It is still the same Snap analysis. You can now build your machine learning within the same environment, leveraging the same data you have. So you have different personas working on the same platform, and then giving you the output that you require for your different line of business. Someone will now say, what of streaming? What do I do to this architecture if I want streaming? Remember, this is just a single service. What do I do to this architecture if if I want to bring in streaming. Nothing changes. What you're going to bring in is a streaming service that will stream data into the data lake, and you can still reason over that as if it is a tabular information. So you know how difficult. I don't know if you've done a whole lot of streaming. Let me say things around fraud analytics. Fraud analytics is something that's bringing two worlds together. I have historical information about what transactions were fraudulent and what transactions were not fraudulent. But I have real-time activities happening on my platform. People are buying, people are trading, people are doing a lot of things. They're streaming information. How do I run fraud analytics on what they're doing in a real-time manner, and also derive the insight? This same platform will allow you to deliver that. So covering your batch and your real-time analytics all on the same platform. So just to give you how you're going to bring in both the Azure Snap Analytics and the customer insight, you will see that the common denominator here is the data lake. So the information that the customer insight will derive from all your customer information will still be stored in the data lake. You will mount that same data lake to your Azure Snap Analytics, and then run all your machine learning, your streaming, your reporting, also from the same platform. So you're seeing that the data lake is common to your business right now. Everything that you're looking at bringing into your business. So whether you're a student or you're the Fortune 500 class, think of the data lake going forward as the way to bring in to unify your data. If I move to the other part, which I really, because I see I'm running short of time to make sure that I cover a whole lot of things, is around the Azure AI. How do we leverage the breakthroughs that the likes of Microsoft Research have out there to allow you get the most out of the data you have in your environment? I'm going to talk about a couple of use cases. It is going to be a little technical because I'm going to be showing you some architectural diagrams on how you should be picturing this, but we can still go through. I believe it will touch. It will address a whole lot of the scenarios that you might be thinking of. But if it doesn't address any of them, just speak up and I will address that. But these are the services we are using in our Bing search, in the Office 365, Xbox. These are services we are also using in Microsoft to drive a lot of value. And this is broken down into three parts: the machine learning part, the AI and agent part, and then the knowledge mining. Going down to the machine learning part, Microsoft has what we call the Azure Machine Learning Service. And it is actually an enterprise solution. So why we call it an enterprise solution is, in an enterprise, you don't expect that it is only data scientists that you have there. Some people are not data scientists, some people are just business analysts, some people are, you have CSOs. So you have different personas within the enterprise. How are they going to leverage machine learning going forward? Do they need to wait for the data scientists to build out a model before they can leverage it? This challenge is what Microsoft is addressing by saying it is an environment for all. If you're a business analyst and you don't know anything about machine learning and all those algorithms and the rest, can you also build yours using what we call the auto ML to help you build out your model without you knowing anything about what is going behind the scene? And then one other difficult thing that we see is around how do you operationalize this? So it's one thing for you to build a model to determine who will transact with you today or tomorrow, but it's also another thing for you to put it in production and have it treated as a human being going forward, because the person that will transact with you today might change tomorrow. How do you also adapt as that person is changing? And what we see is that Microsoft also brings alongside the ability for you to create your model, it also gives you the ability to manage the operation and deployment of that model. And then around how you also get to interpret the model that you have developed. So when I say interpret the model you've developed is, if I say a customer is not going to transact with me, what part of my model is telling me that what part of my data is giving me that information? Why is my customer not transacting with me? So imagine that you've built a model, and the model is a loan default model. And what the model is doing is that by the time you interpret the model, what you notice is that the model is using the gender to determine whether you should give a loan or not. That on its own is already a bias in the model. It is not intelligent. It is maybe using the information you use to train it to make that prediction, but that doesn't make any business sense. That I should deny you loan because you're male or because you're female. That doesn't make any sense. So we've gone beyond throwing out models out there to saying, why is my model behaving the way it is? That this will also change the way businesses view the model. Because if I'm telling my CXO that the model is saying you shouldn't give this loan because maybe of the person's educational qualification or something of that nature, I already have at the back of my mind some metrics that I can leverage to change how I'm offering my services. So maybe I shouldn't give this person a loan. Maybe I should do something else. I should create another service that will serve this person, because obviously the model is saying that people of lower or very high academic qualifications won't pay back. So the way I treat business is not different. Then going down to, I'm going to skip this part, but just to get to the use cases and how we should be looking at this. The common machine learning scenarios which you can be looking at, and here you can see some of the customers we have that are already using this in their business, is around predictive maintenance for people in manufacturing or in the oil and gas industry. Things around fraud detection kind of cuts across everywhere. Things around intelligent recommendation, so you're not blasting your product to everyone. Things around inventory management. Inventory management is also something that is very, very capital intensive. Things around demand forecast and things around sales forecast. So you can actually add your own scenario here. But we'll just walk through a couple of them to just show you how you should think about this from the Microsoft standpoint. Looking at predictive maintenance, this is for the oil and gas industry. Let me quickly play out this. Where you have your wells, where you have devices, IoT devices generating information from your well, and then you're using a service we call the IoT Hub. This is an integration service that will help you capture information real time from IoT devices, removing all the complexities. And here you can also see that I have data lake here. Everything, whatever I'm going to show you here, you always see data lake. I have a data lake storage, which means I need to store this information. And then I have a service we're calling the Stream Analytics, which is a service that will help you reason over streaming information and then aggregate them for someone in the operation center to view. So I have this all coupled together for someone in the operation center to view. But going forward, I should be also able to reason over the historical information that I've already stored in my data lake. And that is all where the Azure machine learning comes in. So I'm storing all this information in the data lake and I'm plugging to it to create my machine learning. So I'm building and I'm training, and then I can, with the same machine learning, Azure machine learning, package it and deploy it, and also monitor it. So what happens now? Because I now have the Azure machine learning, I've trained the model, I've deployed it. The way I am running this is now different. So some of these services, based on my model, will have to. I don't need to show them. I don't need to send it to the dashboard. I'm being very intelligent on how I address this, because I've added AI to it to show, for this kind of information, please, we should go perform predictive maintenance on this well, because this is an anomaly. So you can now see how you can bring to the same operation agent, how you can give more insight into what is happening in the well. To say, this well, we need to go maintain it. The temperature is anomalous, or we can go do something else, or just to make sure that we don't lose the productive time of the well going forward. If I move forward to another one, inventory management. Inventory management is something that is also very, very expensive, especially because you need to stock things in the warehouse. You need, if you don't have any inventory management, you could have a whole lot, have to rent a large warehouse for you to keep your products. And then some of them will get to expire or get bad because it was excess and you can't dispose of all of them. What we're seeing here is you leveraging the information you already have from your point of sales data about what the products are doing out there. And if you can also see here, I have a data lake. I'm storing all this information in the data lake. It is not just about the POS information. I could also bring in information about weather, about social media, about whatever thing I have, but all of them will live within your data lake. And then I'm using the Azure Snap Analytics that is plugged to my data lake to provide the inventory audit, to serve the inventory audit. I want to go beyond this. I can also plug in Azure Machine Learning. That means leveraging the information I have in my data lake and the result that will come out from my machine learning, I can the addresses information about what is happening. I'm also giving the forecast to say this product, I'm intelligently managing. So into this and work that story across this architecture. And this is one of our customers that's already using this, the Little Caesar. But I won't spend time on this. Going to the AI apps and agents. What are the services we have? We have what we call the Azure Cognitive Service and the Azure Bot Service. Those two make up what the AI app and the agents. If I go to the Azure Cognitive Service, what we're going to see here are different AI solutions that Microsoft has out there that we've already trained with the information that was compliantly got. And any business can leverage this. And it cuts across decision, it cuts across speech, it cuts across language, it cuts across vision, and web search. If I dig down, I won't go to all of them personally, but I will just speak of some of the services that you get out of the box from this. Imagine that you're looking at building a conversational platform. If you're looking at building a conversational platform, the first thing that will come to you is how do I understand what the customer is typing and based in the way a human being will understand that. So the language service provides what we call the Q&A maker that will help you create a knowledge base that your customer is more like your customer support center, where you can easily create a knowledge base of your Q&A, of your frequently asked questions, or any traditional organized document you have, things around manuals or product manuals or training materials. You can have the Q&A maker glean that information and then address or provide services to your customers based on their natural language input. We have things around text analytics, sentiment analytics. Those are things that you easily get from this service, and you don't have to go build one yourself. You can leverage it. If you go to the vision part, there are things around. The interesting thing, I know it's something that most businesses don't use today, but will appeal to your business. We deal with a lot of forms. People come fill out forms, and then they give it to an agent we have, and then the agent transfers it to another place. And so this process already there's a lot of time for the customer, for the agent to transfer that information. So you're losing time that would have been used for something else. So the vision service gives you things around form recognizer. These are things that will help you automatically glean the information you have from a form, whether it is handwritten or it's typed, and then give it to you in a digitized format removing that, cutting that the processing time that you typically have in your business process. But what about things around addressing your customers based on the fact that you know the environment, you can see. You can do things around Face ID, you can do things around custom vision. Maybe there are processes that you need to automate, but you don't need the human being to go look at it. But you can use those vision services to detect what product is this. Is it defective? Is it not? Is it not defective? You can define a whole lot of things around video indexing. You have video CCTV footages that you're storing on a day-to-day basis, or you have other videos that you have in the environment. Do you need to have someone sit behind the screen and then go through the video, or can you use the video indexer to go index everything you have within the video, so that if I'm looking for maybe a suspicious person, I don't need to go watch 365 days of the video. I can just quickly use the video indexer to identify a particular face anywhere in the video, and it brings it out to me. We go forward to things around decision. One interesting thing that we also have within the cognitive service is what we call the personalizer. So you have people interacting with your site, and how do you show me what really appeals to me? Not that I go to your site and it's a static site, I see the same thing. An older person comes in and sees the same thing. A younger person comes in and sees the same thing. There is nothing personalized based on how I'm interacting with the site. So Microsoft has this called personalizer that you can leverage it's through what we call a recommender, where you are interacting with the site and you're kind of training it based on how the things you're clicking, and it knows your preferences, and it can show you what, from the way it has learned from you, it can show you the thing that appeals to you. Well, if we go forward to things around anomaly detection, around content moderation, these are the things that you also get within the decision part. Go down to the speech, you can easily bring in speech recognition, you can transcribe your recordings, and you can imagine the value you're going to get all around from a service of this nature. But this, then going to the conversational platform, this is where we have the bots, where traditionally today, and this is what I need every business to also rethink, how are you positioning yourself in the conversational platform? A whole lot of our active customers are very, very active in the conversational platform. They've actually moved away from the traditional web platform that we have to more of a conversational platform. And so we should be able to create our businesses on this platform. Microsoft has tons of services that will help you create this. The Azure Bot Framework is the foundational service that is powering our bot. But on top of the bot framework, we have services that you can use. There's what we call a bot composer. This will allow you to build a bot without writing codes. So for the ones that are not developers, but they will still want to create their bot, they still want to simplify processes in their business using bot, they can easily use the bot composer or the Power Virtual Agent. This is also a service we have. Those two services, you can create a bot without writing a code. Or if you're very good in writing code, you can also use any language that you choose. And the framework supports the very popular programming SDKs. And so you can also use that to build your framework, your bot, and make your bot intelligent, leveraging all the AI pre-built services that I mentioned in the previous slide. Then let's talk about the common scenarios, just to bring home the point around where you can use the AI apps and the agent scenarios. Things around robotic process automation, just to help you reduce the time of processing or running some of your perfunctory activities that don't require a lot of human intelligence. You can simplify those processes using the robotic process automation. Things around personalization, I already mentioned you can personalize your service, but things around personalization, around object detection, around intelligent customer service. This is also where we see a lot of application of this kind of services. Your customer support agent, how do you take away some of the workloads that they are currently servicing? How do you take it away from them and offload it to the bot to perform those services. I just make them concentrate on the highly intelligent and things around sentiment analysis. If you have your product out there and people are commenting about it, it is not a good product. People are commenting about it. How do you get that sentiment in real time from what people are saying online to change your line of your production line to meet the needs of the people? Things are around this service are things that we should be getting in real time and not just wait for it to happen or for the harm to have happened for us to leverage this. So let me talk about the robotic process automation, just to show you a simple architecture of how you should look at this going forward. Imagine you're in the automobile industry and you have more like people coming in for their cars to be serviced, and you have somebody filling in the form and giving it to an agent. Is it possible for you to simplify this process? Yes, it is. By leveraging the form recognizer, I already mentioned what the form recognizer does to help you glean information from forms. So you can leverage the form recognizer and have it that when somebody submits a form, I'm going to use the Azure function. This is a serverless function we have. It only comes on board when something has happened. So it's more like event driven. So something happens, somebody submits a form, I use the serverless function to pull in the form and read the form using the form recognizer. I can have a human in the loop to just confirm that the information gleaned is okay. And I store the information in a data store. My Azure data lake is coming up again. And then I can now plug it to a Power BI for somebody to visualize, or I can connect it to other business processes. But this on its own has reduced the processing time for me. Rather than having someone queue and I'm having to type in everything at once, I'm serving more customers because I've saved the time that we would have called for somebody to do this manually. What about the intelligent customer support? We do a lot of speech calls. We call the customer agent all the time. And how are we using this intelligent app to do this? What we have here, this is a customer that is calling. What we have here is a speech to text service where I'm transcribing the audio signals to text. And then I'm leveraging things around another service, text analytics, to find out the sentiment or the key phrase. What are people talking about? Or entity recognition. Can I detect a particular name? Can I detect a particular entity? I can surface this information in real time to the customer support agent that is attending to the customer. And with this, I'm seeing the sentiment that the customer is talking. I'm surfacing that information to the agent, and he knows when to escalate this to a higher authority or when to look for intervention. He knows the key phrase is the thing that people are talking about, so I can actually provide more targeted response to this customer. I can also leverage this going forward to change my business process or to change my service offering. A whole lot of people are complaining about this product. What should happen? These are the information you're bringing to the business decision makers. They have a Power BI dashboard that is showing them this word map. I'm seeing a whole lot of people complaining about product A. Is there anything wrong with product A? Should we make it? Should we change our service? Those kind of business decisions are things that you can glean from the information that is coming from your customer support agent, leveraging these services I'm showing you here. So let's go to the other part. I need to be done in the next 10 minutes, given to give you time to ask questions. Knowledge mining. I love this part. I love the knowledge mining. And one thing I want to talk about knowledge mining is it is more like the oil we have in our industry, in our different companies that we don't use. It is. And why I'm saying this is I had earlier mentioned that 90% of the information we have in our industry, in our companies, is unstructured. So what do we do to those unstructured information? We store them somewhere in our hard drive. We store them somewhere in paper form. They are somewhere in the email, or somewhere, or they're somewhere in a disk, videos and the rest. So this is like you being a Bing or a Google of your own, but not being able to get that information. So you have all this information scattered everywhere, but you cannot easily get it because you don't know how to get it. So I'm looking for a document. How do I find this document? It's stored somewhere in my company. I don't know how to find it. So I have to ask employee A, who will ask employee B, who will also ask employee C, that will come back to say, I don't know where the information is. So at the end of the day, I have this information stored somewhere, but I don't have access to it. So how can we build our own search engine on top of the information we have? And when you build your own search engine, there are a couple of things you're going to create. One is that you can also find out relationships. So imagine a case where I have a file, somebody sends something, a document, it is a fraudulent document, it is printed. I do not know, I don't have the time to go read through all the information. Maybe it's a 300-page document. I can't read through every line of text there because I also have to do other jobs. So I will most likely miss out a whole lot of things that pertains to compliance or pertains to risk, but it is there in the document. How do I also leverage this kind of thing? Just to give you an idea of what we mean by cognitive search, what you're seeing on my screen is what we used to do in the search space before, where it used to be what we call keyword search. So somebody comes and types, tell me where the Eiffel Tower is. So the search is basically using the keyword to search. We moved away from keyword search to what we call the contextual search. In this case, you really don't need to type the Eiffel Tower. You can just type something close to it, or a tower in Paris. And it uses contextual search to find out that there is an Eiffel Tower, and so I should find the Eiffel Tower and show you. What we are doing right now is what we call the cognitive search. So what will the cognitive search do? Tell me about the Eiffel Tower. I am giving you, I'm using my cognitive service. So my cognitive service means I should be able to see images. I should be able to see text that is handwritten. I should be able to see anything because I'm using some cognitive services to see, to listen, to do a couple of things. So the result that you're going to get is not just any document about Eiffel Tower. I'm also going to get a picture about of the tower because I know that I've looked at this picture and it is the Eiffel Tower. I'm also able to look at the text that is written somewhere, and I can also pick it out because I have that cognitive skill. This is one thing that brings a lot of value in our business today. So how are we going to do this? Microsoft actually got this service, the Azure Cognitive Search service. It's a fully managed SaaS service. It's built, which has the built-in AI. So I mentioned the cognitive services. They are plugged into this service, and it's customizable, which means you can actually bring in your own AI, your own AI models into this, and also it will leverage it. And this obviously performs over 6 billion documents processed a day from Microsoft. So how do you use this in your environment? So let's just assume that you have your document stored in a data lake. I'm also bringing out data lake, but it could also be any other data source, but a data lake. And this information has images of people, it has tables, it has different things in it. What the cognitive search will do is it will help you break down all the information you have in this document, PDF document, whatever it is. I can detect the language that is there. It does face detection to say, okay, there's a face there. You can identify what it does. Organization and entity recognition. So it kind of does, or can identify locations, organizations, can pick up key phrases based on what you have. And it can also leverage your own Azure machine learning model. Maybe there's a model that you've built to detect fraud or to detect compliance breach. It can also run that across the document to detect when there is a breach. Or translation. Maybe you want to translate from one document to another. It can also help you and provide this document in form of a JSON that you can leverage everywhere that you deem necessary. So let me just quickly talk about the common scenarios, given that we're also running short of time, of how you can apply this. Things around auditing and compliance. I've said a whole lot of things around it, but things around auditing and compliance, technical content review, or customer feedback analytics, things around catalog search, around process management, digital asset management. I think the scenarios are numerous. It all depends on how you're looking at this in the lens of your business process, but through the lens of the business process. But this is something that I want to advise everyone to think of how to leverage this going forward in their business. Looking at the auditing and compliance bits, how can we just picture this happening? So I have images and PDFs that I store in my data lake. I still have those information in my data lake. Then I'm using the cognitive service to index this information. So I'm detecting the language, I'm doing automatic translation if I need, or I'm doing entity recognition. But I have my own custom skills. One of them is risk identifier that someone in my data scientist in my team created a risk identifier. So I have that. Or I have clause extraction. There are specific clauses that I need to extract in documents. If I see those clauses, then it's something I need to double down on. I have those. I can bring them in as custom skill and then create a SaaS service that I have my compliance team go through this 300-page document that it has been indexed, or a collection of documents I already have, and I can have them search for documents that have risk identifiers, and it goes to my repository and picks out all of them, saving the time for me to run that process. And in the area of digital asset management, it is still that same process. I have my information stored in storage, and I can index them and have it searched by whatever service that I'm looking at leveraging it. So at the end of the day, these services are actually being leveraged by a whole lot of companies out there in the globe, top 500 companies. But the truth is, it is not just for them. These services are all available on the Microsoft Azure platform, and you can use it at the scale for which you are. So you don't really need to use it at a very high scale and pay for something that you don't need. You can only use it for what you need and pay for only what you need. So people that are exploring can have those services also out there that you can try out the free trials of those services to understand what they are, then put them to business use going forward. But the list is actually endless. I decided to pivot on these ones just to talk about business, but it goes beyond these things I just mentioned. Around the Internet of Things, it is becoming the next big thing. But Microsoft has the service already out there. It's called the Azure IoT Central. So if you're looking at going into the IoT business and things of that nature, you can also look at the IoT Central. It is software as a service. So that's like the easiest platform to use. So it's like Microsoft 365 or Office 365, which is more like a software as a service that you don't need to go provision anything to use Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. You can actually use those services and have your own space and use those services with your document and everything for you. That's the same thing that happens in the IoT Central, where you have the platform already built for you. What you now need to do is to bring in your own devices and then define your business logic in the platform, and you already have a company, an IoT company. You can also have things around digital twins. So imagine you have a company, most top companies use this right now, those in the manufacturing line. You won't want to go build out your own IoT platform, but you can create a digital twin of your plant or your production line. Create a digital twin of it, and then perform all the analytics. Where do you need to put this sensor? All those kind of analytics, it can be performed on a digital twin without you having to put any infrastructure on the ground. This is something that you can also get. Around application development, like modern application development, it goes beyond what you might be currently doing now. There is a whole lot of solutions that are out there around Logic app, which will allow you build applications and create logics by dragging and dropping. Microsoft has a way of making everything simple for everyone. So you can actually build complex applications, talking to different things, talking to different services, third-party, first-class Microsoft services by dragging and dropping and configuring what the rules are for those services to run around the Logic app. And also the Cosmos DB. The interesting thing about Cosmos DB is, imagine I have a service that I've built that is serving Nigeria, but tomorrow I want to go to Brazil or I want to go to the US. Do I need them to be hitting my data center around here? No, I need them to get the same kind of performance, even though they are everywhere. So with the Cosmos DB, it gives you that global availability. So I can decide to have an instance of my application, of my data, that is living in the US or living in the Antarctic or wherever it is, and then have those databases, the Cosmos DB instances, coordinated by Microsoft for me, and then serving my clients, and they all have the same performance. So imagine where you're going global, the kind of thing that you're looking at. Around security, around this time, the increase in cyber threats, Azure Sentinel, Azure Security Center. These are services that we already have that you can plug in to improve the security in your environment. Also networking, we also have services around there. So the list is endless. I won't end. And this is, don't see this as exhaustive. There are over 1,000 services on Azure that you can leverage. Another interesting thing I need to bring to your table is the fact that the Azure has what we call the Azure Marketplace. So the Azure Marketplace is, just as the name, is a marketplace. So that means you can actually bring your own service and then your own IP, intellectual property, and then have it stored on Azure. And Microsoft is helping you sell your service too on Azure. And so imagine how you can increase your reach by building an IP, building something, thinking about something within your space and building a service that can deliver value, and then have it sold for you on the Azure Marketplace. And then you're also increasing your reach. I think the opportunities are numerous. I have very limited time to talk about it, but this is where I want to end and then open up the floor for Q&A.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. This was a very, very wonderful session. So, guys, like I commented earlier before, let's start posting our questions in the chat section so that Dr. Nnanna can attend to them, please. So, thank you very much, sir. So we'll just keep an eye, at least for the next couple of minutes, on the chat board. I'm very sure we would be asked drop their questions.
Okay, very well.
Is someone asking, are we going to do practicals? Not for this particular session. So I hope that has answered your questions. Probably there will be subsequent, if you check the timetable, I think there's one more session on Microsoft Suite. Okay. So, sir, we have a question here. There's someone asking, how can I connect Power BI to AWS to get real-time visualizations?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. Okay, so Power BI has a lot of connectors. I want to believe you, since you're already talking about connecting Power BI to AWS, you used Power BI before. So Power BI has a lot of connectors that will talk to third-party systems. So within AWS, I'm sure there are tons of databases or data stores or whatever that you want to connect within AWS. So if you go to the connectors we have and then search for the specific service you want to connect to, since you didn't talk about the specific service, but go to the connectors listed, then search for the service you want to connect to. And then if those services are there, you can connect directly to those services. If they are not there, you can actually build a connector yourself and then leverage those connectors to connect to those services in Power BI.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. There's another question here. So what is your advice in preparing for certification exams, especially Microsoft certification exams?
Okay, so for that, in preparing for Microsoft certification, I will advise you to go to the Microsoft Learn. Microsoft Learn is open for everyone to leverage. So even I also use Microsoft Learn. So you can leverage Microsoft Learn for the different services, for the different certifications that you want, and then go through the courses within the Microsoft Learn. And with that, you would have covered a whole lot of the ground for the certification. So on your browser, just type Microsoft Learn, and then from there you will see the services. You can also type just type Microsoft certifications, and then from there, from the certification that you want to write, it can take you directly to the Microsoft Learn, where you will have free resources that you can use to prepare for the certification. And then finally, you can use the Microsoft Doc. I use it a lot. It is exhaustive. It's like a textbook. Microsoft Doc would give you line by line everything you need to know about the service that you. So for all the services that you will be satisfied on, just use the Microsoft Doc for those services. Then go through the concepts, the use cases on how to use the services. So I'm giving you are free resources that you can use for it.
Well, thank you so much. I think we have we have a lot of questions pouring in now. I'm just trying to find because it's quite a lot. There's someone also asking here that, let me see. Someone's asking, is it an SQL base talking about Power BI and AWS? Is there a link to learn how to connect Power BI to? Okay, that's just based on the feedback you gave. Okay, so
And just to tell folks here, Power BI Desktop is a free service. If you download Power BI Desktop on your PC, just click on Get Data from Power BI Desktop. It will show you all the connectors. There are over 100 connectors there to different services you have. So you don't need to go to the cloud to use that. Download it on your desktop, then you can connect to any service, even the ones you have on your desktop, any data source, and then you can start playing around with it.
also there's also someone asking here. This is just quite a generic question. It's saying, is there any advantage of Azure Cloud Services over AWS?
Mm. Okay, so I will be so I won't. This is the response to this question is going to be why you should use the Azure service from the Nigerian standpoint, because I believe we are on a whole of the attendants here are Nigerians, but from the African standpoint. But it is not. I'm not comparing Azure to AWS. So one interesting thing that you will notice with the data centers I showed you earlier is that we have data centers all around, over 60, and this is this is more than AWS and Google combined. So you can imagine the reach of our services. So you have one that will serve you for wherever you are. Then the second thing is, in Nigeria here, we have a lot of support. Microsoft has an office in Nigeria here. We have a lot of support from the local team that will help you in whatever service or whatever service you want to use, or whatever support you require. So you have a lot of support locally. And I don't know if you've seen this, but Microsoft is doing a whole lot of work with different government, and the Nigerian government also inclusive, where I just try to search for enabling a digital Nigeria. Is a job done by Microsoft on how we will enable a digital Nigeria, leveraging the cloud, leveraging data, leveraging AI. The Minister of I think it's mix of information. I can't remember the full portfolio, but if you just search for enabling a digital Nigeria, you will see the work that was done by Microsoft. And this is also in line with the whole of the service that we are delivering. Then finally, I don't know if you heard about the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure. It is a project that Microsoft won to provide the infrastructure for the military in the United States. So you can imagine building an infrastructure for the military in the United States, like nothing is compromised. Infrastructure-wise, all the service we have on Azure has been redesigned because of that contract. So in terms of meeting the highest security standard, in terms of meeting the highest compliance standard, in terms of providing top of class solutions, because of that contract, Microsoft has redesigned Azure completely. And what you have there, so imagine you're using the best, not imagine, but you are using the best in class cloud infrastructure that will serve the military. Obviously, if it's serving the military, it's also serving any enterprise as well.
Thank you so much, sir. I think people are still putting more questions, but then there's this specific question around how can the services that you have described tackle cases where indigenous languages are used. So a person give an example of pidgin and say how would the AI service provide that kind of service to tackle or to capture that kind of data.
Yes. So there's a service which is part of the language models. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes.
You can still see my screen. Okay. So there's a service in the language model. We call the service the language understanding. It's called the Lewis service. So you can also try it out, the language understanding service. So this service, if you can see my screen, language understanding, which means you can actually train a model to understand the Nigerian way of speaking English, which is the pidgin English that you just mentioned. So in that case, you have to bring in the different utterances, and those utterances like how you day is how are you, but it is a greeting intent. So you can actually train the model to say understand that when somebody says how you day, it is person is greeting you and not saying something else. So you can train the model to understand the unique language that you're speaking. So that's one service we have that will help you do that.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, there's still new messages coming in. So someone said, can Azure be substituted for Kafka in data collection from applications?
Yep. So I guess you're in the streaming part, the real time analytics part. So there are a couple of services we have on Azure that will help you do that bit. We have what we call the Event Hub. So the Event Hub is a streaming integrator. What the Event Hub will help you do is, and also the Event Hub is also supports Kafka. So when you're provisioning an Event Hub service, you can say enable Kafka as a solution, as an integration, a real-time integration service. So the Event Hub kind of gives you what Kafka will give you, but also beyond what Kafka will give you. The IoT hub that I mentioned is also using Event Hub under the hood. So you can actually use Event Hub for what you want to do. But assuming you choose not to use Event Hub, we want to use something else, we have what we call the HD Insight. The HD Insight is more of your Hadoop, managed Hadoop platform. So where you have Kafka or whatever service you want to use in the Hadoop ecosystem. So you can also use it within the Hadoop environment and have Kafka running at the background. But my professional advice is I should tilt towards Event Hub because a whole lot of those, a whole lot of the management work has already been done for you under the scene.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I think we'll just take 2 more questions and leave because we can't answer the questions that's been posted on the chat. But then the next question is for someone just starting out learning Microsoft AI suites. What would you recommend for the person to start with as a first time learner, just starting in that field, especially when it comes to computer vision?
Yeah. So my advice for you is use the cognitive services first. Do not go build your own model. Use the cognitive services first and see whether the cognitive services match what you want to use it for. If it doesn't match what you want to use it for, maybe you're using it for computer vision and you want to detect Amala, and you cannot detect Amala because Amala is not a very general thing. It's unique to Nigerians, and you want to do something that is just unique to Nigeria. You can use the custom vision. So custom visions means you bringing in your own images and training it to understand what you have. Behind the scene is the transfer learning that Microsoft is using so that it's not training everything from scratch. It's just transferring the knowledge it knows to adapt to your own environment. So you can use the custom vision. And if custom vision still does not solve your problem and you want to still go further, then you can now use the Azure Machine Learning services that we have, either Databricks or Azure Machine Learning service to train your model. But first, use the cognitive services, then the custom vision.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I'm gradually coming to the end of the session. I'm going to ask the very, very last question. I think from Michael, asking that for extracting data from data lake, do we still use SQL language or is there another Microsoft tool for extracting data?
This is a very, very interesting question. Yeah, and thank you for whoever asked the question. Michael, you said. The interesting thing about data lake is that it uses the open source standard. That means if I have a data lake that has text files, different things in it, they could be stored in CSV in any format. That means anything that can read the CSV can read the information from the data lake, right? So I can actually access that information with anything that can read the CSV. If I'm doing things around, maybe I'm using a big data environment, I'm using Hadoop or I'm using Databricks, I don't know if you know about it, I can decide to query all the information I have in my data lake using SQL. So everything is given to me in a tabular form. So what can help you do those things are imagine you're using Python or using R or any of those languages, and you're pulling information from a text file. You have a schema that you apply to that text file to pull out, to sieve out information from it. It is still the same thing that you're going to do when you have your information in data lake. So do maybe pandas.read or whatever language you're going to use, or PySpark if you're doing the PySpark way. PySpark.read CSV or the read Delta or the read Parquet, depending on the language you're storing it. So it is the storage system. It doesn't restrict you. You can bring in any service and mount it on top of the data lake and pick out the information, provided the service can read the data file you have in it. So there's no restriction. And that's why, if you notice, I was putting data lake everywhere, which means put your information there. You're not restricted to any file format. You're not restricted to any service. You can bring in your own service and still pull out the information from a data lake.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that we've now come to the end of this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Nnanna. This was very, very awesome session. I myself gained a whole lot from this session. Can we please, the chat board, just appreciate Dr. Nnanna, just your favorite emojis or just your word. Thank you so much, sir. So we appreciate it. I think the session now ends. so you're free to leave now. But officially the session for everybody will be closed, will be ended by around 2:05. So thank you very, very much, Dr. Nnanna, and wish you guys a very nice rest till the next session also comes up again. But right now, you're all free to leave. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Goodbye, and enjoy your session. Bye.
Bye, sir.